I thought I would introduce myself. My name is Chip. Hello. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, born and raised. That's an Arizona postcard. I was raised by my loving parents, Bud and Brenda Allison. These fine-looking people here. They're actually in the back. Say hi. Yeah. Go parents. I'm a family man. I love my family. It starts with my wife, Kay, of 10 years. She completes me. I think I can say that. Awesome. Okay. We have created three offspring. This is Finn, Noah, and Kate, our youngest, who's also here today. Don't scare her because she's a girl. I am the co-owner of Monomyth Studios, and this is the team here with my best friend Mike Giles, who looks like he's laying on top of me, but it's optical illusion. See. And yeah, so proud to be a part of that team. We got an amazing team, very talented, and we're growing as the days go by, which is exciting. Other things I like Futurama a lot. Strangely enough, I like llamas, Lincoln Logs, and I am a big fan of Jesus Christ. He really is my all. And among other things, there's other things about me that I like, but just to get to know me a little bit. So, shock, huh? So when I was originally asked to do the topic, I came to find out that I don't think I was the first one that was asked, which is not a big deal. I kind of felt like Rudy, like in the back of like the, I don't know, all the players, and you're the one in the back, like not expecting to go in, and then they call your name, you're like looking around, like, okay. So I'm here today. I love the topic. I was encouraged to speak from the heart and from personal experiences. So before I decided to do that, we came up with ideas of different ways to like shock you guys. So like a series of shocking events that would leave you like in a state of like stress. So we decided not to do that. Also had the concept of having Mike streak through the building, which we will not do. He's the one running my PowerPoint today, which is good. Thank you for doing that. But settled on the big idea. So the big idea for today is how to use shock as a way of striking out mental muscle memory, both personally and professionally. So does anyone work out here? Is anyone a lifter of weights? I know Todd Bookout is. He was a very strong person, or still is. Sorry, still are. So if you're familiar with lifting, you are familiar with the concept of muscle memory. So muscle memory is when you're trying to develop strength within your muscle, you try to continuously shock your muscles to work out in a different way. What that does is it allows you to maximize the strength of your muscles. Otherwise, they get caught in a similar rut and they don't ever develop fully. So not to say you can't get stronger by doing 50 push-ups every day. You could probably come to be able to do like 1,000 push-ups. That's awesome. But you're not fully maximizing your chest muscles, and I'm not trying to get too much into the science of it. But strangely enough, our brain also acts like a big fat muscle. And so in the same way, we have to continuously shock our brain as a way to get it out of complacency, out of creative ruts. Otherwise, if we do the same thing day in and day out, we will continue to fall into the same habitual thinking. We'll train our brains, and they will begin to run on autopilot. So especially in the creative field, this is something that we should definitely fight against. When your brain's on autopilot, you are trapped. You are in a habitual system of thinking. Our brains get trained to feel certain emotions or approach a challenge the same way. And this habitual thinking or this mental muscle memory doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow process. And so that's why you see, after months and years, you see the old guy on the porch yelling at the kids on his lawn. because he's old and is stuck in his ways and doesn't like people around him, and he's not the kind of guy that's going to be looking for new ways of thinking. Examples. I mean, let me back up here a second. Habitual thinking, habit-formed thinking, isn't a bad thing. There's some really good things that we do habitually. We breathe. Things like driving to work, brushing your teeth, feeding your body, doing mathematical equations. As part of what we do in school is train our brains to know that 2 + 2 = 7, right? So knowing that that there's good sides of habitual thinking, but there's also more complex examples of habitual thinking. So when you're in a relationship, or when you're approaching your work from a similar perspective, those are times where you don't necessarily want to get into habitual thinking or a complacency, because that's when your work and or your relationships can lose their effect. So it can affect anyone. Not just creatives, but being in the industry we see this happen, where creatives kind of lose direction, and it's not overnight, and they start to follow similar ways of thinking. You can tell that it's coming from them or their studio because it's following common tropes, and it's easy to do this. It's easy to fall into that trap because it's comfortable. We don't have to continue to retrain our brain for creative output. We can just kind of run the gray Helvetica typeface route time and time again. So the other thing is, what the effect of it is that you develop mundane or off-target or just bland creative work. So you have to definitely fight against that. The sneaky thing about it is that it is very... Oh, gosh. Thank you. Everyone, wake up. Oh, is that... Okay, I'll do this. Awesome. Very sneaky. That was very sneaky. Many times, we can't see that we have a problem with getting stuck in ruts. And so a lot of times you have to have life events or certain things, and we'll talk about those in a second, that jog you out of your memory, or out of your rut. So what are you supposed to do? First, recognize it. Recognize that everyone can be affected by muscle memory, and know that you need to be shocked out of it. Second step is to take action. Break your brain out of this mental mentality. Okay, so this can be done through a change of your job, a new habit, or hobby, I should say, a change of your approach. The idea of I'm going to be putting my phone down and being more attentive with my family. That doesn't happen to me personally, but I know some guy that decided to do that. It's not a big deal. Anyway, breaking the habits can be hard. Habits die hard. So when you decide to take action, we all find that it's uncomfortable. It can be strange, scary. It can kind of, you all have experienced it. When you are forced to do something that you're not normally doing throughout your routine, and you come away feeling like, man, my brain is just like melted. I'm drained. So what that is your brain retraining itself to think differently. Because when we are manually getting in and rewriting the connections within our brain, because it's not on autopilot, it is a difficult process. It is a mental difficulty, and that's part of why people run away from it, is because you can get really comfortable with autopilot. The next is we must embrace that we must embrace in life that shock happens. There we go. Got it. I wrote this, so. So we must embrace that life is shocking. Some shocking life events can be good and also bad. They can be big events or very subtle events. Some examples can be major life milestones. You turn 30 or 40 or 50 or 60. You have a new job. Someone that says something or does something that changes your perspective. World events, family tragedy, family excitement. All of these are life events that are changing your perspective, and all of them are shaping who you are. So embrace the fact that shock happens. I'll give you a couple examples in my own life where these shocks happened that were both subtle as well as more impactful. The Notebook. Okay, the movie, The Notebook. Yep. So I was in a relationship in high school and then into college with a girl that was pretty awesome. We dated for years, and going back to what I was saying before, the more complicated habitual thinking starts to happen. So we were in college, coming back and forth from here in Chicago, and we started to get caught into different ruts. Our relationship lacked direction. We were dating for a long time, and we're kind of in a limbo state. And then we saw this movie, The Notebook, and it changed my life. And I jokingly say this, but it is serious. I'm very serious. I actually can't remember any real plot line of the movie, but what I received from that movie was, hey, there was a great love here between these two people, and I don't even know their names. And it shows them getting old together and dying together. And at that moment, I had like a light bulb go on, and I looked over, and she didn't know, to who's my now wife, Kay. And I'm like, I'm going to marry this woman and grow old with her, and I want that for our lives. And so definitely an emotional time. I was sobbing. I don't know if you remember. I'm kidding. No, but it was one of those simple life changes. That changed my perspective on our relationship. I knew, hey, I'm gonna marry this amazing woman before anyone else does, and luckily I did, and we're still married. The next is I was going to be a certified accountant. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If there's any certified accountants in here, that's great. It's a great profession. Backing up to my childhood, I grew up with a creative bent. Yep. So I was really I found one of my dad's old Nikons before it was really hipster to do that with film. And I started to take photos of flowers and birds, and it was pretty fairly nerdy in that regard. And so my friends would come over. I'm like, hey, let's go take some photography. They're like, okay. So I'd like pull them along. We'd take like photos of cactus wren and whatever other flowers. Anyway, so I was really into that. Then later in time, I got into film. I would like to make little short films for myself. I was the inventor of the original GoPro. I took one of my remote control cars and I put a mini cam on it, which is still like that big, and chased my dog around in like a horror film for like, I don't know, dog chasing. But he really looked scared. He put some like intense music to it. Anyway, so through the years, I lost direction. I thought of, okay, started to grow up. I knew in life I wanted to, well, what you're supposed to do is make money and provide for your family. And so I'm like, well, I don't know how I can do that with those two fields because I haven't seen it before. So I'm like, well, I know accountants make money and lawyers do. And so I shifted my thinking, or I got in this rut of thinking, and it took me all the way to halfway through college. I was getting a finance degree, business finance degree, and it was incredibly unhappy, lacked passion. And my parents, talked to my parents about it, I was lamenting about it. And I remember them saying, they're like, hey, why don't you like take a more creative route? I was like, what? They're like, well, you really enjoyed being creative as a kid. How about you shift your focus towards something that's more creative? And so in turn, I heeded their counsel and shifted my focus from finance to something that's a little bit more creative, which was marketing, business marketing, and organizational leadership development. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. Not really. And then at the same time started taking design courses. And so I started to become this hybrid business-minded designer. And that's where I found my passion. People always ask me why I didn't follow in my dad's footsteps of being, a wealth advisor. He's very successful, and I'm very thankful for that. And I have a mass amount of respect for him. And it's not because I don't like my dad and I don't want to be like him. It's that we're all creative. We are all created to have certain passions, and I just had a burning desire to go after something more creatively focused. And so I really appreciate their counsel in that. Okay, the next one. A boring meeting helped me swing for the fences. So this is a more shocking one. So let me fast forward. So I went through school, left, started working at a design firm up in Scottsdale, grew up into leadership there, was starting to be a part of the account process, account management. And so I went to have a meeting with a client who has developed into a really great friend. And we were supposed to talk about the details of their web experience and different things like that. And I remember having our notes there, and he slid them aside, and it's like, we're not talking about this today. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure we're talking about this today. It's like, no, we're not talking about this today. I'm pretty sure. No. And he started asking me questions about my career and where I was, and our approach to business, and started to speak into my life in a way that no one has ever done before. I was, in a way, lulled to sleep. Though I was in the creative field and enjoying it, there are aspects of what we were doing that were not necessarily in line with or in parallel with the passions that we now have at Monomyth for excellence, for work-life balance, for these different things that were having an effect on my life that I didn't really see. And so it took a boring meeting with a land developer for him to speak into my life and say, hey, so why don't you swing for the fences? He gave me the example of a baseball player by the name of something, and who used to play for the Diamondbacks, and he was a good hitter, but once he was traded to another team, they said, hey, we don't necessarily want you to get on base, we want you to go for it. And his home run percentage skyrocketed at this new team. And so he's like, in the same way, he's like, in a way, you're kind of trying to hit, I'm not really good with baseball. You're trying to hit the base, trying to run to the base, but not for a home run. I retired at T-ball, so that's about as far as I got. He's basically saying, hey, go swing for it. And if you fail, then you fail, but at least you're going for it. And that's a big portion of, or that's really why Monomyth exists today. Right after that meeting, I nervously called Mike Giles, who's now my business partner. It was something we'd batted around before, and the timing wasn't right to start because of different places that we were in our lives. But I left him a message. I'm like, hey, he was traveling to California at the time. I'm like, and left a message. I'm like, hey, man, when you get back, like, call me. Yeah, we need to talk. And he gives he tells me the story that whoever he's with, he's like, Chip wants to start a company today. So he could just tell by my tone that we were about to start something. So something as simple as a meeting changed the entire course of my career, and definitely a shocking experience. I did not expect that. And so the point of this is that shock happens in life. So look for those times, analyze the validity of what people are saying. Don't just get like shocked out of thinking by whatever it is, but embrace it. Be looking for it. Okay, so we know that we can get caught into complacent thinking, and we need to get shocked out of it. We know simple ways of life experiences that can get us out of it. But okay, once we're out of it, then what do we need to do to continually train ourselves to not get caught back in it? So we have to take our brain to the gym. So pretty actively, going back to the metaphor of not creating muscle memory, we have to take our brains to the gym in these 4 different ways. One, switch the style up. Okay, so switching the style up means, okay, let's simple things. Take a different route to work. Approach a common challenge at work from a different perspective. Find new hobbies. Wear polka dots instead of plaid. Okay, that didn't land quite as well. at Monomyth, we're always looking for ways of doing this. And it can be simple, it can be more complex. It can be as simple as including a messaging system as a part of our workflow. It was a suggestion of Justin Tucker. So we use Slack now as a way to kind of keep our communication consolidated. And at first you're like, oh crap, I don't want another thing to have to manage. But you do simple things like that to kind of shake it up. And maybe it works and maybe it doesn't, but you're giving it a shot. There's other ways that we approach our creative process differently, and we can go into that another time, but always be looking for ways to switch the style up. Number 2, calm the shock down, okay? So I'm addressing a little bit of just mundane or complacent thinking. The other side of that is the fact that we are in a constant, for some of us, we're in a constant state of shock. It's a part of our culture. We're a society that's constantly, Mike and I talk about this often, we're a society that's constantly running from imaginary lions. And so when you're always in the state of shock, and you're in consistent stress and driven by work and by deadlines, and you're consistently connected to tech, and your brain never shuts off, your brain's consistently held at what the psychologists call being upregulated. Had a great conversation with my mom, who's a psychologist, and she went into all the science, and I got overwhelmed. I got really upregulated about all this. But the simple thing is, when we're at that state of upregulated mental thinking, what that does is it creates stress, it creates anxiety, it shuts off your ability for your brain to think as creatively as it can. So, in the same way you got to get shocked out of your complacency, you need to figure out a way to kind of shock yourself out of the upregulated state. We need to then downregulate. Am I saying this right, Mom? Okay, cool. So think back to your life when you were younger, maybe 5, when you had zero stress to worry about. You just would go outside and make mud pies. At least I could speak for myself. That was a time where I could think as creatively as possible. You think of kids and the stuff that they draw, or the way that they think, or the ideas that they come up with. It's completely unupregulated. They are in a state of calm, and they have the ability to think creatively. So the idea is that we need to get back to a downregulated state, or at least have the practice of coming down off of that upregulated state. And so, not to say you're never going to go back up, but you need to rest your brain, which is what I'm going to be talking about here in a second. So ways to downregulate. Go back. Ways to downregulate. Breathing is a good way of doing that. Like taking a deep breath. Do it with me now. There we go. Doing yoga, getting out of town, taking a walk. We do a lot of walk and talks at Monomyth as a way to get outside, get some fresh air, allow us to kind of come down off of our heightened stress state. Just look for ways that you can downregulate. We talk about at Monomyth in the last 2 years that we've been in existence. Man, we've been going 100 miles an hour. So for me personally, I would probably fall over dead if I didn't figure out a way to come down from that 100 mile per hour state. And so for me, I strive every morning to take time. I wake up before everyone wakes up, and I take time for prayer and for scripture reading and for level setting. And if you don't do that, you just wake up, get ready, hit the road, you're going to create burnout. So calm the shock down. Number 3, go for it. Yo. The idea here is set some goals for yourself. Have some aspirations. Visualize where you want to be in 4 years from now. And set things in motion that are going to allow you to get to that. When I was a kid, I put a ton of goals up on my walls in my room because some guy our family knew is like, you need to set goals. And so I set goals. Really the only one that I can remember that I failed at, Anyway, so I wanted to be 6'6". Because Michael Jordan was 6 foot 6 inches tall. And so that one didn't happen. But here more recently, in my young career, I wanted to own a agency by age 30. So by the blessing of connecting with Mike, I was able to do that the month of my birthday, which is pretty fun. So, but there's things that were put into motion to go for that after that goal. And so goals can be relational. Goals can be career driven. They can be developing, they can be financial. They can be developing a special skill like bow hunting or marksmanship. What goals do is they give us a carrot to continually be working towards. All right, number 4, I'm almost done, guys. Mix your thinking. So in the business world, there's something that's called groupthink. Who knows what groupthink is? Cool. Anyone else want to raise their hand? Okay. All right. So groupthink is when you get a bunch of people together, and this can happen over time. They begin to think the same way. And so when you're trying to approach a creative process from a group of people that are all thinking the same way, there's no one pushing each other for thinking differently or acting differently. And so what this does is it's just like a collective complacent mind. Okay? So how to fight against groupthink: surround yourself with people that are not totally like you. Learn from people in different ways that face the same challenges. So Phoenix Design Week, a fantastic place to mix your thinking. And it's very directed. I mean, we're all coming from different parts of Phoenix and different parts of the world to talk about a similar area, a similar craft, but from completely different directions. And so if you're paying attention, you come away with some major inspiration. You're pushed to think about your career and your approach from a different manner. And I encourage you guys to when you have those experiences, note those. File them away somewhere. You got to be able to take that different way of thinking and not just think, oh, that's an interesting idea, but how can I apply that to my life or to my career? A goal of Monomyth is that we want to have a diverse group, and not necessarily, so we want to have a diverse group of thinkers, because if we're all, again, thinking the same way, we're not going to push each other in our careers. So we really strive to find ways of hiring people that think from a different perspective. That can be incredibly frustrating, having people think differently than you, but you need to embrace it. We have some pretty intense disagreements where we want to go punch trees and stuff. But that's really helpful, because at the end of the day, you're getting pushed, and that's part of what the uncomfortable or frustrating nature of it. Okay, so those are the 4 things. I'm going to wrap it up now. So, in summary, look for ways that you may be stuck. So take a second, downregulate. Think about where you are in your life. Think about where you are in your career, and allow yourself to be honest with yourself. Seek the counsel of other people. Hey, do you see areas of my life that I'm stuck or complacent? And then the next, embrace the shock. So embrace the shock that life brings, both big and small. Those life moments that are kind of like aha moments, or someone says something to you, or something happens to you directly. Embrace those moments and figure out how they can help jolt you or shock you out of your mental memory. Last point, use shock to be mentally free. Kind of bringing it all together. So our muscles can work at their full capacity when they are shocked in different ways. In the same way, our brains, if we don't look for ways to shock them, will not work at full capacity. So use this concept of breaking yourself away from common thinking to use your brain to the fullest and be awesome at what you do. Thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions or just comments? Anything they want to share?
Oh, 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 two.
So normally we think shock, a thing that happens in the moment, like it's like, takes a breath away, a surprise, whatever. But it seems like the way you're thinking about Chip is that you're sort of set yourself up to be surprised in more of a long term or a long view effect. Do you agree with that? Can you elaborate?
Oh yeah, for sure. And gosh, I had a couple different ways of approaching this topic. It's a word, and so yeah, you could approach it from a couple different ways. Yeah, I thought of other times in my life that I was shocked in an instant, in a moment. One that Kay had reminded me about was I was driving one Sunday morning to go grab coffee, and it was almost T-boned, and it was like a split second away from like life over, and that was like a wake up call. And so yeah, those happen as well. And what that does, both long term and like more of an instant or short term shock, is it changes your perspective really quickly, and it really comes down to how you react to it. Outside of like life ending, a lot of times shock isn't life ending. It's just that is just crazy. And so you can either go climb down in a hole and like be afraid of what just happened, or you can take a second to think about it and embrace it and figure out ways to apply it to your life in a helpful manner. So yeah, does that answer your question? Cool. David?
Yeah, what's been the biggest shock since you started your company?
Look at Mike. What has been the biggest shock since we started? Everything, like every day is a shock. No, I don't know. Mike, do you have any?
For you, probably letting the biggest client go.
Oh yeah, yep. So we did that. Yeah, we did that. So we're a startup, and I've worked with a client as a part of my former agency that worked with for 8 years. Great relationship with them. Didn't fit the client mold that we were trying to craft at Monomyth. It's just really founded on trust and mutual respect. It was a very one-sided type of working relationship, and so early on in our company, we're like, all right, so a priority of ours should be that we reallocate our client mix to be a good fit for us, again, because we're going to be more passionate about it, and it's just a good working relationship. And so, yeah, we decided early that we needed to let our largest client go in order to allow us to work more with other clients that are kind of more in our field. We said that, we're like, yeah, it's awesome, that'd be fun to do someday. And so then we actually did it, and it's been a really freeing experience. It is still fairly shocking, kind of rethinking how to develop business that's not on a retainer basis. So that's kind of been an eye-opening experience, but really freeing. I feel great. We feel great. They were, yeah. Okay. Another question? Yes.
So it seems like a lot of times shock comes from an external source. Has there ever been a time when shock came from yourself, or that you shocked yourself?
Well, no, I would have to think about that. I don't know. Everything I'm thinking of is external. I surprise myself sometimes. I don't know. I guess with like the fact that yeah. I don't know. Sorry. It's a lame answer. Good question though. It was a great question. I just didn't have anything for that. I'll do better on the next question. Anyone have another question?
Chip, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So you mentioned that sort of like that near-death T-bone experience, you know?
Yeah.
And with the intent of like finding ways to shock yourself out of, your norm or your status quo, like, do you have any thoughts on how to use perspective towards shock? Like something that would be shocking, using that thing to build a perspective towards, renewing your thought process?
How would you answer that, Doug? I know.
Like you use that sort of fearful, shock, life-altering, potentially situation to frame you thought moving forward that they can look at things. You know?
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, the main takeaways from that is that life is short. I mean, that's a common response to that type of shock. I mean, the way that we just talked about, taking risks, knowing that in fact life is short, and you can shock yourself by doing something that is really risky, and knowing that, hey, if I fail, at least I'm going for it. You know what I mean? And yeah, so I think coming off of those type of more like instant shock experiences, just going for it is really the main takeaway. And yes, Mike, good thought.
I think it's funny. Let me read the word for you.
Yeah, he's my word guy. You want me like line?
If you look at like the common theme throughout this, it's a little bit of a twist. He's talking about all these ways of changing your habitual thinking, but at the end of the day, what he's saying is create a habit of thinking of shock as a beneficial thing. So it's not looking at it as something to avoid or as a constant negative, but like, okay, these things are gonna happen. We know that shock is going to, life is unpredictable. How can I train myself to use those situations for my benefit as opposed to my detriment?
That was awesome. Do you have any answer to that other question about? Okay. That's fine. Awesome. Cool.
Okay. Well,
Awesome.
Thank you again, Chip.
Thank you guys. Thank you.